here we are again. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is. Hello. I hope all is well. It happens to be raining here, and I like the rain. It's soothing, you know? It's like a calming and soothing atmosphere. Yeah. So the Lord has been bringing up taking better care of the body and exercise and being healthy and being prepared for what's to come, right? Preparation and all that good stuff. And with him doing new things and not necessarily going about things how you used to do them, you know, that familiarity, that comfort in the things, in the ways you used to do things, right? Letting that stuff go. Embracing the new, trying new things, doing new things differently with him. And as a naturally, athletic person, I know I mentioned this before, but I used to do track in college, and I've done athletics all throughout my life. I've played soccer in high school and middle school, track and field throughout high school, middle school, and college. And I've always ran. And there was a point where I couldn't run because I broke my toe. And so even walking was difficult. Exercising became difficult. The regular things that we tend to take for granted became difficult because of this broken toe. And although I could still do things, right, I had to be mindful of my foot as to not re-injure it. And so I had to move at a slower pace than I'm definitely used to. And I felt like it took things from me that I couldn't necessarily do, especially how I did them before. And so it was a process and period of doing things and making adjustments because of my foot. And so I knew I've been exercising on and off, not necessarily consistently, but I try to do some kind of movement or maintain some sort of something to keep my body, active and in motion, especially when you're stationary, right? For a long period of time, an extended period of time. And I knew I wanted to get some fresh air, and I haven't gone on a walk in a long time. And sometimes I call them like prophetic walks or runs, because I go and pretty much like just talk to God and just think and reflect. And so I decided to go on a walk. And I knew the route that I wanted to walk. And so I walked. And I didn't realize until after the fact, but it's kind of like the pace that I started the walk is what I maintained throughout the whole walk. And it was a very fast pace. Like, I was like, I don't know why I'm walking so fast. Like, I could slow down if I wanted to, because I was just walking. But it's like the pace that I took off with is pretty much how I walked the entire course of what I wanted to walk in the neighborhood. And mind you, doing that walk, like I said, I was walking at a faster pace than normal. I was tired. I was a little bit out of breath. I was sweating. I was like, wow, this walk exerted a lot more effort than I thought, and energy than I thought. I also had on sweatpants though, so I know that contributed to, me sweating and things like that. Hence the word sweatpants. And I was content with that walk. I accomplished what I had set out to do, which was walk and get some fresh air and spend time with the Lord in a different atmosphere, a different environment. And the next day, I decided to run. And I wanted to run the same course. Now, since I broke my toe, since it's been healed, I haven't necessarily ran for that long of a time. And so this was a challenge, especially, like I said, I haven't consistently exercised, and especially run. And so I was like, I want to run, and I want to run the same course that I ran in the neighborhood. And so I did. But before I ran, and this is all stuff I know, like I said, I ran throughout college, high school, middle school, pacing yourself, right? If anybody's ever ran or done any kind of exercising for an extended period of time, you know to pace yourself, especially mid-distance, long-distance runners. You pace yourself. You set a course or a plan of action. There's actual strategy to running. And so I made up in my mind, I determined before I went that number one, I wanted to complete the entire course without stopping. And I wanted to have, as much as possible, maintain a consistent pace. I didn't want to take out too fast. I didn't want to take out too slow, but I wanted the pace to maintain and remain consistent throughout the entire run. And so, although I could have ran faster, I knew if I ran faster, I wouldn't be able to maintain that pace throughout the entire duration of the run. And so I went at a slower pace, a more consistent pace. And I also was more mindful of of not paying attention to my surroundings and just focusing on accomplishing the pace and consistency of me running the race. And I thought that was so important because usually if I see someone, in the neighborhood, you look up, you say hi, or, sometimes you get distracted and that takes you off of your breathing and things like that, looking around. Subconsciously, I think sometimes we tend to do these things subconsciously. They become so embedded in us, we don't necessarily realize that we're doing it. And I didn't do that this run. I made sure I focused on my breathing. I focused on the consistency of the pace that I was running. I didn't care what the neighbors were doing outside. I knew where I was running to, how long, I didn't know how long the run would be, but I knew the course was mapped out, and I knew if I just focused on the assignment that I was given, right, the task at hand, that I should be able to complete it without any distractions. Like if I had this tunnel vision on what I set out to do, that I could accomplish it. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Like I said, I haven't ran consistently. I haven't exercised consistently. And I set out and I ran and I completed the run. I ran the entire course. It was a little bit over a mile and from start to finish. And then I walked for a little bit afterwards and I was just thanking God because it was so much revelation in that run and in that moment, that sometimes we don't realize that we get distracted and we get off task, or we are not as focused on our assignments or our tasks because subconsciously we're being influenced by our surroundings, by the things around us, or we're looking at someone else run their race or even walk. Maybe that person is called to walk and you're called to run in this season. But that shouldn't affect what you have to do and what the Lord has given you to complete and to fulfill. Does that make sense? Like, it was just so much in that run. And I was so happy, even though I was tired and out of breath, right? And realized I got to take better care of my body for sure. so I can endure, run longer at a more consistent and faster pace. But it was like, if we can make these little adjustments, they end up to make a huge shift in the trajectory of our lives, of our thinking, of our posture towards things. And I've had this revelation before, but it was kind of presented in a different way, especially that consistency piece of the pace that you're given, right? It has nothing to do with anyone else. If I am focused on my assignment, my pace, my race, right? I ran the race that was set before me. Then I'm not worried about anyone else's pace or what anyone else is doing or how they're running or walking or crawling. And so it just put things more in perspective for me, and I was grateful as always. And I thank God for those little moments, those intimate moments that we have with him, which once again comes from relationship and fellowship and communion with a good, caring Father. And so, as I'm sitting here listening to the rain and reflecting on everything that brought me to this point, and that, number one, I'm qualified because he qualified me. I didn't qualify myself. And I for sure did not call myself, because I wouldn't have chose me. Okay? And be honest. I wouldn't have called or chose me. And I used to do that, well, why me thing, Like, of all the people, you could pick someone else for sure. But when we change the perspective, right, in our mindset of, wow, number one, you trusted me, you chose me, you called me, you qualified me. That's a privilege and an honor, right? Because I was that special. I was that much on your heart and on your mind. And I was that trustworthy, right? We don't look at it like that sometimes, but I was that trustworthy that you've given me responsibility. And it's like the only reason you would give someone responsibility is because you know they can handle it. And of course, you don't equip us. He doesn't equip us for things that we're not going to need or use, or to help someone else, because what we have is not necessarily for us. That's why I think it's so important to focus on what he's given you, right? What he's given me, what he's given to us individually, because it intertwines collectively. One body, many parts. Each part is important, and we all need the parts together to function as whole, right? I always love that miracle at the pool of Bethsaida, where Jesus asked the man laying on the mat that would wait 38 years, for the angel to come stir the waters. Oh, I think I'm in two different books right now. Am I in John? Is this John? I could pull out the Bible. It's laying right here. I believe it is in John. I feel like I'm looking at the story, and I feel like I'm in John. Lord help me. John. It is John 5. Yeah, a certain man was there which had an infirmity 38 years. He carried this around for 38 years. 38 years. And the verse before that, I was right. Verse 4, for an angel went down at a certain season in the pool and troubled the water. Whosoever then first after the troubling of the water stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. This is John 4 and 5. You can just read the whole chapter. Just read the book, all right? The Gospels are great. The whole Bible is great. But this particular miracle that was performed was Jesus asked him a question. Will thou be made whole? And I wrote yes. But then I started thinking, well, what does wholeness look like? Now, in his situation, he was physically, right? He had an infirmity. But what does our infirmities look like in our lives, right? What things are keeping us bound? Because it's all bondage when you think about it. When you break it down, it's all bondages. What bondages do we have in our life that are holding us down from being made whole? Will thou be made whole? I guess that's my question to you. It's probably going to be the title of this episode. Wow, I didn't even know I was going here. As per usual, I love it when the Lord does this. But will thou be made whole? That's King James Version. Let me break it down in English, modern day version. Will you be made whole? Will you? It's a question of, will you be made whole? And if your answer is yes, then now examine what is keeping you from being made whole. Assess the things that are hindering you. Assess the things that are holding you down or keeping you bound. Assess the environment around you. And if it's taking you and distracting you from, right, your race, your pace, the season that God has you in, if it's taking you off of what He's called you to and your assignment and what He's asked you to do, asked you to say, asked you to build, asked you to yield to, asked you to pray through, if it's taking you away from that, then it's a distraction. Then it needs to be dealt with. Then it needs to be expelled. Then you need to get in the pool. So yeah, I think that's where we're gonna end, because it's a question of reflection. And are you going to allow Him to make you whole? Because that's the one who can make you whole. It's nothing else. It's no other source. It's Jesus makes us whole. The process might not be easy, and it might be tiresome, and it might hurt. And it might be uncomfortable, right? But being made whole, being made whole. Will you be made whole?